Abusia, a choir, the government of Ghana, this current NPP administration, to a baby or Mufra Kunyasui, led by Nanado Danko Kufuado, a so-called human rights lawyer. A choir, Omode sister, a faso, a government of Ghana, institutions, a memha, a dear sister, a faso, up to date. Led by a human rights lawyer. Yes, sister, in the form so and say, the born in an say, the born in an say, who decided say, obey the spokesperson for the new force. Samoba Kaya, bra, new force, mask no, pop it up now, ubia, who is behind the mask no. Bronia buyer be unitia. No, nana Emma update na or communicating as the spokesperson for the new force. Yes, sister, in this Bronia buyer. The choir Ghana binding a fashion. But Ekowi said, I'm so proud of her, how strong she stood to the stand of taking Ghana government to ECOWAS court, and she came out victorious. She won the case against Ghana government. Me taking much of your time. Yanko tie ono ankasa the story ni nyina ba bonten from the start to finish. Yanko tie iwia e ka bibia kiro. Omode na share video yi na like. Thank you very much. Yanko tie mra.
7 days imprisoned and unlawfully deported because I chose to speak up for the people of Ghana. My name is Shali Marabuzi, and this is my story.
Shali Abuzi, spokesperson of the new force.
Deportation as an affront to her fundamental human rights.
Violate her rights. This is an ambush, right?
How terrible those conditions she suffered in custody.
The person must be released, but you keep the person for 7 days.
I went to Ghana for the very first time in 2017 to represent my country, Belgium, in an international beauty pageant. And I immediately fell in love with the country, the warm people, and the rich culture that Ghana has to offer. It wasn't until 2021 that I returned back to Ghana for holidays, and I fell in love all over again. It was when I was offered an opportunity to present a TV program that I decided to stay a little bit longer. But living in the country also revealed the hardship that was going on. The crashing economy, the despair on people's faces because of the inflation, the rising fuel prices, doom saw every day. People were in distress. And as a public figure, I do believe that we have to use our platform to create positive impact in society. And that is why I've always been involved in charitable projects and humanitarian work, because the beauty of humanity is not in being human, but in being humane. Even as a child, I always wanted to help people, and I was always very empathetic. During my stay in Ghana, I've been involved in many charitable projects such as safe road crossing initiatives, breast cancer awareness, training programs for young girls, and then the Akosombo Dam spillage. I gathered my team and we collected relief items, and we decided to go to Mepe to donate to the victims of the dam spillage. It was there that I encountered the people from the New Force movement. And they told me about their vision, which is empowerment of the youth, industrialization of the country, and better living circumstances for Ghanaians in general. I felt that our visions were aligned. After a couple meetings with the New Force movement, we decided that I would become the spokesperson. A few days after, the first video came out with me as the spokesperson. And that video was so impactful that it reached over 1 million views within 24 hours. The voice of one woman is so powerful that it woke up a whole nation. Not long after that first video came out, I got a call from immigration. They invited me to come to the headquarters and ask me some questions about my residency. I willingly went. The officers made false allegations about my resident permit. I've been present in the media and I never had any problems. until that video came to their attention. They told me I had to stay in the cell overnight. I was thinking to myself, is this really happening? I had to give them all my belongings. They forcefully tried to take my jewelry, my phone. They brought me to the cell at immigration. So many people in that cell, men and women together from all kinds of nationalities. And I was sharing my mattress with a Vietnamese lady. Some people were sitting there for 9 months without legal representation, without a court date, no hope for the future. The next morning, I was hopeful that I would get out. But then I was being transferred. I was asking them, where am I going to? And they didn't want to answer. We arrived at National Intelligence Bureau. They sat me in a room. I was waiting for hours. And then an inspector came and he told me I was under arrest. They would take me to my house to conduct a search, but they didn't even have a search warrant. My lawyer gave me the option to cooperate or to fight for my rights. And I decided to choose for my rights and to refuse the house search. They then took me back to the cells of NIB where I had to strip down, squat. I was being searched. I was being treated like an absolute criminal. I saw a document with my name on it and it said national emergency. What could I possibly have done? And it was also at that point that I knew this had nothing to do with my resident permit. I was given a prison outfit, 1 towel, 1 clean underwear. I was completely being stripped from my humanity. They took me to the cell, which was a horrible, big black bunker with a horrible smell. There was a stash of dirty mattresses. There was one other lady with me in the cell. She was an illiterate woman, and she didn't even know why she was there. She was in that cell for 4 months. No daylight, no fresh air, just the rotting smell of the cell. That night I cried and I was so scared for what was about to come. The next morning, they took me back to my apartment. This time, they did have a search warrant. But again, they didn't want to follow the rules. The officers were intimidating me, yelling at me. Before my counsel and my independent witness could arrive to the location, they decided to just enter my apartment. I asked the inspector what they were looking for, and he replied that they were looking for something that I forged documents with. They didn't find anything, but they completely raided my place, and I was transferred back to the cells. My lawyer made a statement. It's been 48 hours. You cannot keep her any longer without any official charges. What they did then was so conniving. They took me, pushed me in a van, and told my lawyer to go and sit in another room. And I kept asking them, where are we going? And then I saw we arrived at court. They called me to the stand, and I decided once again to stand up for my rights. And I told the judge that I had a lawyer, and they intentionally kept me away from my counsel. But the judge then said that I would have to come back the next day with my counsel, and they would have to grant me a phone call, which they never did. The next morning, my lawyer was present. That was the first time I heard my charges officially. They charged me for forging documents to obtain a resident permit, and they wanted to investigate me for my activities in relationship with the New Force movement. When I heard my charges for the first time, I pleaded not guilty. The judge decided that I had to stay in the cell for 4 more days so they could conclude on their investigation. I ended up staying in the cell for a whole week. No visitation allowed. They constantly intimidated me, and I wasn't allowed to have one-on-one contact with my lawyer. And I really want to enable the critical thinking of the people here. I obtained this resident permit through an official immigration officer. I've been traveling in and outside of Ghana, going through multiple immigration checks with this same permit, and I never was questioned about it. This same permit got renewed by another immigration official. So my question is, who forged these documents to obtain the resident permit? Was it your own officials? They never could produce any evidence to the court. After a whole week of imprisonment, I was finally transferred to court. I couldn't believe my eyes when I arrived at the court. So many people were protesting, voicing out for my release. It was during that court hearing that I was finally granted bail. I was released on very strict conditions. My parents were visiting Ghana at that time. They were so worried for my safety. And finally, after a week after being released on bail, we had a new court date. That court date changed my life. When I walked outside of the court building, there was an immigration officer who shook my hand and told me, "Congratulations for winning the court case. We are revoking your residence permit. You're under arrest." They forcefully pushed me in a van. Everybody was furious because of this unjust treatment. I was being transferred back to a cell where I was kept until night. That same evening, I was deported back to Belgium. I wasn't allowed to take anything, nothing. This didn't break me. It inspired me to be the voice of the voiceless. Because if this is what they're doing to me, then how much more are Ghanaians and Africans suffering every single day at the hands of this flawed system? And I want to ask, if the legal system be overruled by the call of one single person, are we really living in a democracy? I hope that my story can be a testimony of resilience and inspire people to not give up, to not be a victim, but be a conqueror and a survivor.
Shalima Abusi has secured a landmark victory at the ECOWAS court after what many would describe as a harrowing ordeal in Ghana. The court ruled that her rearrest, detention and subsequent deportation in December 2023 were unlawful and a violation of her fundamental rights under Article 6 of the African Charter on Human Rights and People's Rights.
You see, my dear Shalima Abusi, I'm so proud of you, and congratulations in your victory and well done for standing for your right. It's unfortunate we are led by hyenas portraying to be, should I classify them as sheep or goats? We are led by hyenas, but they portray to be humans, but they are hyenas. They don't want us to be free. They don't want us to have our rights in any way. Abusia, many of you were disappointed in Nana Kwame BEDIAKO because Aden also pese obey Ghana mampeni na odi movement aba na wote political party na wakofa broni se ono nembe ya kasamafo bebre na bufuye disappointed in Nana Kwame BEDIAKO for that decision de tienie. Nana Kwame BEDIAKO abrantie no oye badwemba odwene odogana man no ebra eba ne mu a opese o put up this movement new force no onim se de be bia ebehia kasamafo a omo ne beka new force won sempa ne ho dawuro a kire Ghana man Nana Kwame BEDIAKO bo modene ebo pini mu a journalist fo ahodo o motete mu TV so ene mu radio stations ahodo so e de to omo anim se moye dede okrom ha che ene MPP nye ene NDC nye ene omo bo man no ene omo wi o man no moye sa dede na Ghana for so mo che meye babu. This is what I want us to come together and build. Me pesa mo be kame ho na mo di munyansa ne munim de a mo sua won sentra dwuma me ne kasa mu no na mo fan support na nyina yam build this to take over the country from omo a mo sori a na mo tim radio ne mo TV so emblem wo mo no. Abusia, none of these journalists were ready to be the spokesperson for the new force. None of them. Because of why? None of them were ready to be spokesperson for the new force. Because 95% of these journalists you see on your radios, on your TV stations, were sponsored financially to be able to go through their journalism school, blah, 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 by these same politicians of NDC and NPP. Men kasa muntan through in the America. 95% of your journalists on your TVs, on your radios, these big men's politicians from this MPP and NDC are sponsor because people are economically, financially not that free, no. For you to be able to acquire school education to that higher level, no. Here ni wa ahia for man do saying ana papa ni ejane e na betimi afford eti politicians ni smart omo do money to for mo how wa unim kasa na wadwene mu do in terms of explaining and talking. They will come or they will approach you and say oh unim kasa unim de there na opesa we betimi aboa me particularly severally you say social media kasa ya say na they watch us, they read us from afar. Quickly, they will come. Apparently, when you kasa one want to power, ako journalism school na me say there be. Oh, ade me so most of them were sponsored and financed through their education by these same politicians. It will be a school no na so on your radio station, on your TV station, do you think it's a betimi about be lambast about be fire na there be the Obama catch mono they be the wailing, or I mean the normal and the obvious wailing, and then people in this and so on to me when you support any third force or any new force that because we are what betrayed your financing. And moreover, most of these media houses are undergroundly owned by these same big men, these same politicians. It's in another opinion, majority of them, most of them, no, they were not ready to come on board and be the spokespersons for the new force. So at Mefe, during the Akosombo Dam spillage, Anna among for reach out to support the people in Mefe. And this lady, Shalima Abisi, and also she has been in Ghana for all these years. What kind of story? She has been in Ghana for all these years. She has even worked on GH1 TV. Onoso ne onoso enkrofo kwa akoye donation e wo Mefe ho. And na Kwame BEDIAKO nso ko so onoso koye donation. We all saw the Kwame BEDIAKO support to the people of Mefe. E ho no mo ko meeting e. Na omuko shiae. Ti from there no komodidie mu no. Na Kwame BEDIAKO agitu mu so okay. Se ma approach me ankasa me nkrofo no mo nya ready so mo be join me ama ya ye ne de a. Na se wo so be ye de a then come on board and abai wa unity e be yi nanim eti de ti a me kire we mu no mo a mo buofu a na mo adwasa de tina na Kwame BEDIAKO kofa broni na Kwame BEDIAKO e badwemba o se me pese me geme man mintimi ene me ame nkrofo nyeme man yise me kofa broni onu akasa nkrofo ni yi ni man they were not ready to come on board. Share ni interviews ahodo okoko on various platforms o my way mu. After the interview no baby a message ni Ghana for here baby anyansa no wo no mo aslide e no to baby no mako kate baby a ebetimi da ye mockery of him ebetimi a twist no mo dey make mockery of him. This is the country you are living in. This is how the system has crippled, have captured everybody. It took voluntary bloggers and some of the youth to voluntarily champion Nana Kwame BEDIAKO's campaign. It took some people like us voluntarily to champion Nana Kwame BEDIAKO's agenda. Ye nua bay bonia wo ye ani se o declare se o best kasama the new force eno ne de wafamu a wahwe no. But I'm so proud of her, my dear. I'm so proud of you that you never gave up. You stood on your ground to the extent of taking Ghana government. She was deported. It is so sad, sir. Chiro mine. Na ye ready say ye be ma nipa bi no as exercise on right. It is so sad. And it is worse when you have a president. He calls himself a human rights lawyer. Under his administration, intimidation way, bullying way in Abekoso. Nana Kwame BEDIAKO is an ordinary Ghanaian like you and I. Ena ono what decided so ono so pese oba oman no akandie ensemu na ono so pese obetimi anya tumia. From day one, intimidation upon intimidation. From day one, bullying upon bullying. Nana Kwame BEDIAKO came up with a convention. No, the Julius Malema money, Lumumba money, Dr. Arikana no moba. Amomabe Kenyans asem agu Ghana mabunu educate Ghanaian youth and African youth. People came all the way from the northern region. People came all the way from Togo. I was there that night. Even na minim say na Kwame BEDIAKO na organizes her event. At the very few later hours to the program, with all the investment, bringing people from outside, their accommodation, their flight, booking the place, paying a huge amount of dollars for the Independence Square, setting up the stage, few hours, even less than an hour to the program, they say the program has been cancelled. Order from above. Order from above. A cancelled program. He went on, to unveil himself and then announce his presence in our political culture or our political industry. The spokesperson was run after intimidation up and down court to the extent somebody deportation free KWAME. Count it, all the challenges. Omutimi schedule interview for him on GTV. Few minutes, Obeshese no be drive from Efie to the station. Abeka Akrama interview na baso no. Yes, order from above say na interview na baso. Nana Kwame BEDIAKO. Under this government, MPP administration, you. Yes, when even the Niama crowd, Crefra Manane saw the ball, my name be the campaign. I hold to be your baby. I'm not the one to bring all these issues out. Maybe at the right time, one Kasabama team they're out. Let me just give you guys just all this intimidation. Na abufu se mebe ewom kra se ewi ase no tibon kosofo obi num hye kiri se oye MPP stooge MPP ne denaba se omrambe de start NDC vote me sure mudi na me se support de shemutiri ma na se mefi It is so sad, but I hope and believe, sir, Nana Kwame BEDIAKO will not give up. Because some of us, we don't just preach and talk just on our lips. Say it's about time a youth takes power, takes affairs on this continent. We don't just say it on our lips. Majority are just hypocrites. They just say it on their lips and that's all. The Ghanaian will support Julius Malema in South Africa. The Ghanaian will support Ibrahim Traore in Burkina. The Ghanaian will support Peter Obi in Nigeria. The Ghanaian will support this young man who just took over in Senegal. But that Ghanaian will foolishly stand against a fellow youth coming into this same thing we've been complaining in Ghana. That same Ghanaian with that foolish mentality. Outside gentility, outside gentility, home foolishly. He will stand against a youth coming up in his country because the system has found its way to influence them for them to be crippled or stick to the ordinary thing, to the ordinary structures. They are glued to there. So you might be hearing them making a lot of noises on their mouth, disturbing our ears. You take them serious at your own peril. You take them serious at your own risk. But I know the Nana Kwame BEDIAKO, or I trust or I believe Nana Kwame BEDIAKO knows this and won't give up. So on this note, let me say, my dear Shalima Abusi, congrats and thank you for your victory. And continue to stand, even not for yourself, motivate the rest of all other ladies for them to know or have the courage to stand for their rights. Don't allow yourself to be intimidated by any system. If Shalima has been able to go ahead, take account to the whole government to court and has come out victorious, if you are a lady watching me, be courageous enough, be bold enough to stand for your right wherever you find yourself. In politics, in marriage, in friendship, wherever, in business, at workplace, at the market, on the street, wherever you find yourself. Let this Shalima story motivate you. Don't belittle yourself. Stand for your right, because it is your right. Thank you so much. My name is Ofaya, the Nation Uncle. Kindly share this video. If you are watching us on YouTube, hit on the subscribe button. Watch out for more. Thank you so much. Piao.
Follow us on Facebook, Ofayal, the Nation's Uncle. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, The Nation's Uncle TV. Follow us on TikTok, The Nation's Uncle. The Nation's Uncle gives you the raw truth. Thanks for watching.